So Houthis or Yemen's Ansarullah fighters have now released a dramatic video of their evidence how they inflicted collective insult on Israel and its Western backers yesterday. In my video yesterday, I had explained to you in detail just how the hypersonic ballistic missile fired by Houthis had penetrated the so-called invincible Iron Dome provided by the rogue regime of America to Israel. Since I couldn't share those videos here for fear of being penalized by YouTube, I had shared those videos on Janta Ka Reporter Telegram channel. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, I advise that you do that now, because I have just shared another video that Houthis have released today to explain various stages of how they fired the hypersonic missile that eventually hit the target in Tel Aviv. What you learn from this video is quite insightful. So Houthis had named this video Palestine 2 or Palestine 2. This looks like a deliberate move to humiliate Israeli terrorists further. We also learned that Palestine 2 hypersonic missile had the range of 2,150 km and the maximum speed being up to Mach 16. Mach 16 in layperson's terms means a speed of around 20,000 km per hour. This missile was designed to hit the target in 2 stages. Please go to Janta Ka Reporter Telegram channel to watch that video. Now, war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu issued a threat to Houthis saying that they will have to pay a heavy price for attacking Israel. And I talked about it in my video yesterday. But one wonders if Netanyahu seriously believes that he is capable of degrading Houthis' military capabilities. His backers in the US and the UK made similar claims in January this year, and we know how miserably they failed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to update the House on the action that we took on Thursday night against Houthi military targets in Yemen. Since the 19th of November, Iran-backed Houthis have launched over 25 illegal and unacceptable attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. And on the 9th of January, they mounted a direct attack against British and American warships. They fired on our ships and our sailors. It was the biggest attack on the Royal Navy for decades. And so we acted. We did so in self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter, and to uphold freedom of navigation, as Britain has always done. Alongside the United States, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, we ordered the RAF to strike 2 Houthi military facilities in Yemen. I want to be clear that these were limited strikes. They were carefully targeted at launch sites for drones and ballistic missiles to degrade the Houthis' capacity to make further attacks on international shipping. I can tell the House today that our initial assessment is that all 13 planned targets were destroyed. At the drone and cruise missile base in Barney, 9 buildings were successfully hit. A further 3 buildings were hit at Abs airfield, along with a cruise missile launcher caught in the open. We have seen no evidence thus far of civilian casualties, which we took great care to avoid.
Meanwhile, I'm also being told that such is the helplessness of the Biden regime against Houthis that they have even approached Ansarullah fighters to strike a deal. Yes, the deal is that US will finally give legitimacy, US will finally recognize the Houthis government in Sana'a if Houthis stop their maritime attack in the Red Sea. I'm told that America is shaken by Houthis' recent actions in the Red Sea, particularly the attack on that British ship carrying more than 1 million barrels of crude oil, which they say, Pentagon says, that was going to Greece, but there were reports that it was heading towards Israel. Now, this particular claim that America is more than willing to strike a deal with Houthis has come from Muhammad al-Bukhaiti, a Houthi political official who told Al Jazeera on Monday. You know what Houthis said? They refused. They refused to strike this deal. Now, this is something corrupt Arab rulers can learn. Now, if the coverage in the pro-Israeli Western media is anything to go by, you get the idea that Houthis have pulled off a coup with their missile strike in Tel Aviv. London's Telegraph newspaper carried this headline: Houthi missile strikes central Israel for first time after penetrating Iron Dome. And Telegraph is no leftist or liberal newspaper. It's pretty right-leaning newspaper in the UK. Pro-Israel, London-based Jewish Chronicle website asks its readers, why did Israel fail to intercept the Houthis' ballistic missile? The headline chosen by Sky News, Rupert Murdoch's Sky News, read, ballistic missile fired by Houthis in Yemen hits central Israel for first time, sparking panic. And what to talk about our own BBC, my former employer, a propaganda outlet funded by our tax money called license fee. It carried the story too, but it headlined its article with Netanyahu's reaction. Do you understand that? Because going ahead with the story that Houthis had humiliated the so-called Western superpowers would have been too embarrassing for the BBC. Anyway, returning to the genocide in Gaza, the region's health ministry has now released a 649-page document giving details on more than 34,000 people slaughtered in Gaza between 7th of October and 31st of August 2024. You know the tragic aspect of that list for me? The first 14 pages have victims who were less than 1 year old, and the last 11 pages have victims who were older than 77 years. Can you imagine the barbarity and savagery of Israeli terrorists and their sponsors in the US, the UK, the EU, Canada, and Australia? And this is still continuing. Now, if stealing land wasn't enough, these petty criminals have now resorted to stealing children's toys. This was one of the questions asked to the State Department spokesperson in his Monday's press briefing.
And finally, last week when the Israelis raided the Jenin camp, right outside the camp, there's a Hamdan family in a small apartment. They always take their apartment to be a sniping post and so on. They ruined the apartment and so on. They destroyed everything, but they also stole Ashraf Hamdan, who was 13 years old. They stole his PlayStation. You believe that the Israeli army should either give him back his PlayStation or compensate him for that? The last I looked, it was like $207.
So I'm unfamiliar with the facts of this case. So I don't want to speak to a specific incident in which I'm unfamiliar. But no, obviously a child's PlayStation in any event should not be taken away from them in the first place, and if so, should be returned.
So they should either give it back to him or compensate.
So I'm just telling you, I can't speak to the facts of this case. I've only heard what you've presented to me. But just as a general rule, of course, children's toys should not be taken from them, and if they are taken, they should be returned. I think that's a pretty safe principle.
Meanwhile, there are also reports that Netanyahu is now planning to sack his fellow war criminal, Yoav Gallant. Yoav Gallant, who is the defense minister in his government, both Netanyahu and him are facing ICC arrest warrant for their war crimes in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Apparently, all is not well between these two terrorists. We'll see what happens. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of this movement. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.